That we see it is we are very bullish on AI, but there's a differentiation between AI infrastructure versus AI applications. So in terms of AI infrastructure, you'll be talking the likes of NVIDIA, Vertiv, semiconductor equipment companies. On the other hand, you have the likes of Microsoft, Amazon, Google, Meta, who are spending a lot of money in capital expenditure in order to be able to develop some sort of AI applications. And I think the question has always been the return on investment, which we are a bit skeptical. But the way that we think about this is, in order to have a chance to win in this AI race, you need to invest into the infrastructure first, so that you will be able to come up with some sort of applications. But it's not clear who is going to be the ultimate winners.
To me, there's a glass half full and a half empty outcome here, because even with this deep investment, we are seeing that it's moving the needle on cloud sales at this stage. What if it didn't? What if that investment didn't have the upside we're seeing right now? What would that do to the stock prices that are already under pressure in after hours? I mean, it's a question, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I think obviously if you're referring to the AI application, there are many different areas that we can look into. But the way that we can think about this is there's going to be a lot of productivity gains over time, and obviously that will lead to maybe certain efficiency gain within a company too, which might lead to redundancy or layoff. And if you try to work out the numbers, the money that the big tech companies are spending into AI today is not that significant. So I think it's quite manageable. But of course, we are now debating about the penetration, the speed of delivery, how quickly company will adopt to the level of AI. And I think that's very much of a focus of the market today.
I was making the point earlier in the week, there are a lot of moving pieces around who has what market share where from these big technology companies. And AWS, even though we saw strong growth of 19%, the whisper number was 21 to 22%, so a little bit of disappointment. But Google Cloud has taken some market share from AWS. That said, if we look at Google, it feels like the business and the moat could be under pressure, given that OpenAI is now also offering some sort of a search function. That could be, again, another challenger to the moat that is Google. When it comes to the advertising numbers, though, Amazon managed to bump up its advertising sales that then encroached on Google's moat there as well. And of course, the other big one has been Meta. So what do you make of how we think about what have been traditionally strong areas in silos for some of these businesses? Yeah,
this is a very important question, because the way that we think about AI is there's going to be certain winners on the back of that, but at the same time, it's going to be quite disruptive to certain modes of some of the big tech companies. And we are in particular cautious or negative on Google's business model over time. And the question investors would need to ask themselves is, in 10 years' time, is Google, Gemini or / Google Search going to maintain 90% market share like what they did with Google Search before? And I think to answer the question is very difficult today, because you have the likes of Perplexity, ChatGPT, Copilot, and many others who are developing something similar. So we would think in terms of the return on investment that Google need to spend is going to be a lot more, but whether they are going to make the same level of profit, that's very questionable. And at the same time, from our perspective, while we have had Microsoft in the fund for the last 7 years, we had started to reduce our position. We have been selling Microsoft over the last 6 months or so, and the debate is not about Microsoft is going to be around or going to disappear. It's going to be a fine company, but then the quality of Microsoft is going to deteriorate from here, just because it's going to be more capital intensive. But we have no doubts that the customer base are quite sticky. I mean, we are a user of Microsoft, and over time, I think Microsoft is going to be a net winner, but it's just the valuation, the money they need to spend before they get to that journey, that is quite difficult.
I just wanted to extract something from what you just said there about challenging the Google moat with companies like Perplexity. And, you know, Perplexity is a company I think that the bulk of the audience probably hasn't even heard of, let alone tried. And this is just dramatic for a company that has had, more than 90% share in search for so many years, to be challenged by a company that most people have never even heard of. It tells you how dramatic and disruptive this phase is in the cycle.
That's right, because the way to think about this, the reason Google Search has been quite prominent is because it's dependent on the user's experience. So the more we do the searching on Google and the more feedback we give it back to Google, then the better the learning it would do the outputs, right? So then by the time the 10,000 person who searched for the same keyword, you will see the top 3 pages, whatever the item that might be. But then the interesting thing about GPT technology, including Perplexity or ChatGPT, is all the learnings are being done in the backdrop, right? Like you just need to invest a lot of money into NVIDIA GPU, a bit of memory, storage, training the models, and then you would get quite decent results. I think that is very different to what we used to experience. So hence, you're right that is very questionable in terms of how many more search engine equivalents going to come out from on the back of this investment.
To me, it's been a monumental week too for Meta. This is a stock that many saw as the AI market darling, and you've seen that the company's been under a little bit of pressure in some of the after-hours moves as well. The messaging here was that, look, the Mark Zuckerberg we had for the last 12 months plus was someone who was looking at his balance sheet and managing it carefully, trying not to overspend. There is a feeling after this week perhaps he's closed the chapter on that discipline, and now he's just all in terms of building out AI. Do you think that is the case, and does the market need to be a bit more cautious?
So out of the Magnificent Seven names, except NVIDIA, that we are most positive on Meta. So we really think Meta could be a net winner on the back of this AI spending, on the back of not just they are now, we're going to see personalized advertisement on Instagram or Facebook, and in time they are also launching this application for businesses to chat with customers via WhatsApp. So there's a lot of automation being done if you think about chatbots and all that stuff. And so we do think the return on investment as far as Meta is concerned is going to develop a lot. They're going to make a lot more money from AI. So we are not overly concerned about the investment that's going into this now. But compared to 2 years ago when we exited Meta at the end of January 2022, we were very concerned about Metaverse, because Metaverse was something very different that maybe it would take 10 years to see it through or 20 years. But then AI, you can actually see the benefit quite quickly as far as Meta is concerned.
I've been debating Meta in my head, so help me out with this, because Llama to me seems like it has enormous upside for the business, taking it beyond what it's done in terms of end markets. That said, there was a story overnight which suggested that some of this open source that is Llama is now being used, or there are links to the People's Liberation Army using it for military purposes. To me, that really throws a spotlight on whether you want proprietary versus open source. And if it's open source, then it can be used for these sort of purposes, which is against everything that Western technology is meant to be used for. Does it sort of challenge the idea that there could be end markets that Meta doesn't want its technology to end up in? And could there be lawsuits on the back of it if it doesn't carefully manage how that tech is used in future?
Yeah, that is a very big debate, isn't it? Because at the moment, if you think about governments or the regulator, we are a bit behind the curve, and the way that the AI is developing is extremely fast. As we speak. So at some point there's going to be regulations, there's going to be maybe certain liabilities if you're not managing this carefully. Just if you think about when social media first came to light,
exactly the comparison
and it could happen again. But of course, I'm sure like for some of these companies, they're a lot more mature today compared to before. I mean, Meta is now $1.5 trillion company compared to the time maybe it was like 200 billion many years ago. So I think in terms of the know-how, in terms of awareness, I'm sure they will be speaking with the government officials in the US to make sure like the technology doesn't end into the hands of the wrong
actors. It's an early conversation to have, isn't it? I mean, the misuse of or the disuse of social media in terms of misinformation, and then also the use of AI for purposes that they're not intended for. That is a big debate for the future. Thank you so much for joining us to talk through some of the big numbers today in the future of AI. Stephen, you with us, who is the CIO Blue Whale Growth Fund.